character. And it applies to our party too. You know, it was stunning to me when I saw Donald Trump's social media post on Christmas, where he said in that post, to all the people who don't agree with me, rotten hell, Merry Christmas. He's right after that, he said, and by the way, Merry Christmas. Because those always go together, right? The combination of rotten hell and Merry Christmas often go together. Like his Thanksgiving post when he posted at 2:03 in the morning, here's what I'm thankful for, all the people that I hate. And then he listed all the people at that moment that he hated at 2:03 in the morning on social media. If Mary Pat woke up at 2:03 in the morning, because Mary Pat's here and she sleeps through anything. I want to tell you, after being with her for 40 years, I can tell you she sleeps through anything. If she woke up for some reason at 2 o'clock in the morning and just saw me on my phone, she'd throw something at me. If she saw me on my phone sending out a social media post, I'd get in even more trouble. And then if she read the social media post and it said, I'm thankful for all the people that I hate, she would look and say, like, who am I married to? It's head shaking. But that's who wants to go back to the Oval Office. He went to court today, which is the place he spends more time in than actually Iowa or New Hampshire. And afterwards, his argument is that a president is immune from the law. His lawyer in court today said that the president couldn't be prosecuted for sending SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political adversary of his inside the country unless he were first impeached and convicted by the House and the Senate. But if they didn't do it, then he could not be criminally prosecuted for sending the American military to kill a political opponent of his. And Trump, after the hearing, said he agreed with that. Makes you feel all warm and fuzzy about the possibility of him becoming president again, doesn't it? That he thinks he could do that, not only thinks he could do it, but that he could get away with it and not be subject to crime. I mean, look, who do we want to be? It is not necessarily enjoyable for me to be coming out all the time and pointing these things out to people and saying the obvious, but it is my job as a leader to do it. It is my job to remind you that we deserve better than that. We deserve better than the absent-minded guy in the White House that doesn't even know when his Secretary of Defense is in the hospital, and he would hire somebody who would actually not tell him that he was going to the hospital. And we deserve better than a guy who only wants to talk to us about what he can get away with, who he hates, who should rot in hell. Look, this country is angry and divided, but it's angry and divided because we've had angry and divisive leaders. I hope you care about the soul of this country enough to say we deserve better, much better than what we're getting. And like I said, you won't always agree with me, but you'll always know exactly what I think, and I'll always tell you the truth. And when I make mistakes, I'll tell you I made them. And I'll ask for your forgiveness, because I'm human, and I make mistakes just like you do every day. And if you're here looking for the perfect candidate, I can invite you to leave now, because I ain't it. But that's not what we should be looking for, because you're the only person you agree with 100% of the time. Next question. Yes, sir. Here.
Oh. First of all, thank you for coming to the great city of Rochester. We appreciate it, everyone here. And secondly, we all know that Social Security program is broke or pretty close to being broken, and rumors out there in 2034 we're going to be just about dry. What is your plan to make it vibrant and solid again?
Really important question, and this is one where I'll give Nikki credit, because Nikki and I are the only two people talking about this issue. If you remember the debate 2 debates ago, DeSantis, Tim Scott, and Ramaswamy all said, it'll fix itself, don't worry. That means that they know that fixing it is going to cause some pain, and they don't want to say that, and so they're unwilling to say it. I'm willing to say it because it's the truth. In 10 years, you are right. In 10 years, it will be broke, and it will, by law, require a 24% reduction in everyone's monthly Social Security benefit. So think about that if you're on Social Security and rely upon it to help to support you. If the check that got wired to you next month was 24% less than what it was the month before. For lots of Americans, this would be a disaster. And have them having to choose between food and shelter, heat. I mean, awful choices. So we can't let that happen. So what do we have to do? There are only 3 elements to the Social Security program. It's really a pretty easy program. It's when do you become eligible? When? Second, is everybody eligible? And third, how much tax is put into it? When Social Security started, you had 14 workers for every recipient. Now you have 2. So that's the first thing that's a problem. So what do we do about it? First off, I would raise the retirement age. But I would raise the retirement age not for people in their 50s or 60s, but for people in their 30s and 40s who will have plenty of time to adjust to this new retirement age. You can't do it to people who only have 5 or 10 years till they retire. They will not have enough time to prepare for that, to save more money and put it aside so they can support themselves. But look, Mary Pat and I, our oldest child is 30. We have a 30-year-old son. If we raise the retirement age 3 or 4 years, and he's got 40 years to get ready for that, and he doesn't, we got bigger problems than the Social Security retirement age with our 30-year-old son. We'll give people plenty of notice to get ready, but we got to raise the retirement age. And if we do, why do we do it? It reflects reality. When Social Security started, the average life expectancy of a man in the United States was 63 years old. And when it started, you could start collecting Social Security at 62. Great deal for the government, right? Pay all this money in while you're working, and the average person would collect it for a year and then die. And so that's why the trust fund used to be so flush. It was about the number of workers paying in and the fact that very few people were taking it out for a long period of time. Now, the average man in this country lives to 83, not 63. So if you have people who are retiring at 65, 66, 67, they're now collecting this on average for 18 years. And it's just, the money is not there to do that. Second, I would change eligibility for Social Security and not make everybody eligible. I would do a means test on Social Security. This country has provided all of us with a lot of great opportunities. And for those of us who have been fortunate enough to make the most of those opportunities and be able to save a lot for our retirement, we shouldn't get Social Security. Social Security was a safety net program. That's why it was set up. It was set up after the Depression by FDR because everyone relied upon private pensions back then from the company they worked for. And when all those companies went out of business in the Great Depression, people were left to age in poverty. And Roosevelt, I think, rightly said, we can't allow that. There should be a safety net underneath it so that people can have at least enough to live on. That's what it was intended for. I got to tell you the truth. Warren Buffett doesn't need Social Security. Mark Zuckerberg doesn't need Social Security, right? Elon Musk, no Social Security for you. Yes, I've heard from people in town hall meetings, I paid into it, I want my money back. Well, look, there are lots of programs that we pay for with our taxes every day that we never get a benefit from. The example I use all the time, Mary Pat and I have been fortunate, we've never had to be on food stamps. But we pay for food stamps in our taxes every year. It's good to know that in this country, we want to try to make sure as best we can that people don't go to bed hungry at night in this country, and that food stamps are there to help mothers, fathers, children to be able to support themselves. That's the way we need to, I think, look at Social Security going forward, that it is there for those people who need it the most, and we are helping to pay for that. And I'm not talking about, people have $500,000 and most of it's tied up in their house. I'm talking about people who've been able to save millions of dollars for their retirement. If you've been able to save millions of dollars for your retirement, God bless, that's great. Great job on your part. Your life is going to be really good. But you got to wonder, do you need Social Security then? And isn't it really there for the people who need it the most? I think if we make those two changes, you can make it solvent for the long term without having to raise taxes again on people. Because people say, well, why not lift the cap on Social Security taxes? The problem is that if you lift the cap, a lot of middle-class families are going to be paying a lot higher taxes. And you just stop them from saving for their own retirement. I'd rather have those people not give the money to the government who stole it from the trust fund and spent it on other stuff, right? Which is why we're in the problem we're in. Let them say now, we're not going to raise the taxes, but the deal is you need to go and save for your own retirement. Make sure you have that money there. And if you do that, you're not going to have to worry about what happens with Social Security. So that's why I would be opposed to increasing the tax on it, because I think the government has shown themselves not to be responsible stewards of that money that was supposed to be in a trust fund and is no longer there because it's all been given to the general fund. And now it's all just dead anyway. I mean, all it is treasury bills, right? It's not real money anymore in there. We're outspending how much we collect by a lot and just borrowing against it. So that's the way I would handle Social Security. I think the next president's gonna, well, if the next president has 8 years, if it's not either Trump or Biden, they're gonna have to deal with it because of the 10-year issue. That's another problem with Trump or Biden. They only got 4 years. Remember, Biden got up at his State of the Union address last year and he said, can we all agree we're not gonna touch Social Security? And both sides of the chamber, for the only time all night, both sides got up and cheered. I turned to Mary Pat and I said, a room full of liars and hypocrites. Like, they know, and all they want is like, God, don't make me make that vote, right? But the next president, if it's someone who's eligible for 2 terms, is going to have to deal with it. And so I'm happy to deal with it. I'm running for president because I want to do the big things, not the small things. There are big problems in this country that need to be fixed. I want to go fix the big problems and then go home. I'm not looking to stay forever. Let me see this for anybody. Yes, sir, in the back. She's coming around. Molly is coming.
Thank you, Governor. I'm a former New Jersey resident myself, and happy to be here in New Hampshire with you. My question is to follow up on the South America issue. At Drew, I studied Latin American international relations. And the Chinese development and investment in these countries. And the question that was asked to Mitt Romney, who was the greatest American international obstacle or opponent, and he gave an answer. I was curious to see who you think is America's greatest country that is a threat to us. And what do you think about Chinese interest in development and investment in third world countries to take over their minerals and resources and to diminish American influence?
Yeah, this answer is pretty easy. This is almost as easy as what caused the Civil War. China is our greatest adversary. And the reason China is our greatest adversary is threefold. One, and this is consistent with what Romney said in 12 about Russia, they are a communist dictatorship. And so philosophically, about the way society should be ordered, we completely disagree. Secondly, they are the #2 economy in the world. And as the #2 economy in the world, they actually have the resources to be an able adversary. And number 3, they don't want to just compete with us, they want to defeat us. And that's a much different approach. So those 3 reasons are why they're our biggest adversary. The second point on the issue of their economic strength, that's what they've been able to use, as you talked about it, both in Africa and in South America, to invest in what they call the Belt and Roadway program, right? To invest, and in return, they get control of a number of elements of those countries' natural resources. And that matters not only because we don't want them in control of it, it limits our access to those things as well, which are integral to the creation of semiconductors, integral to the creation of batteries, integral creation of a lot of things that we want to do in this country. Those minerals are not here. It's one of the few times that this country doesn't have the natural resource advantage. One of our great advantages over the history of our country has been we've been relatively self-contained in terms of natural resources. And now with the way we've developed energy, we're pretty self-contained with that as well. But on some of these other ones, we are not, as you know. And so the Chinese understand that, and that's why they've gone about doing it. They want to control it, and they want to deprive it from us. It's a twofer for them. And so what do we need to do in response to that? I think that this is what all the people in our party say they oppose foreign aid. The Chinese love it. Every time a Republican gets up in Congress and says, oh, this is a wasteful foreign aid, the Chinese are like, amen, baby, keep saying it. And we'll do it. And they can't get any friends naturally. They got to buy all their friends, right? We've been lucky enough that over time, because philosophically we've been in line with most of the rest of the world in terms of the way people want to live, we've been able to have friends without having to buy them. Well, there's some of these folks that have now shown themselves they're for sale. And we got to go in and compete with the Chinese on this stuff. Remember, too, on the first part, on the communist dictator part, you know, this is something Trump just said this a couple days ago. Loves President Xi because he rules 1.4 billion people with an iron fist. That used to be what the American president used to speak against. Now we got an American president who sounds jealous that he can't be a dictator like President Xi. It's breathtaking. And I will tell you, I've spoken to Trump supporters up here in New Hampshire about this. And when you say that to them, like for most of them, not all of them, but for most of them, they kind of get like an ashamed look on their face. And you know what they say to me in return? Well, he doesn't really mean it. Whenever Trump says something that really repels a Trump supporter, they say either one of two things. Either it's not true, because he told me it's not, or he didn't really mean it. He means it. And so we need, as a country, to be standing strong against folks like Xi, Kim Jong-un, the mullahs in Iran. You know, we need to be standing strong against these guys, Putin in Russia, because the rest of the world is watching. And those friendships that we have, they're going to go away. And if they think that we're not going to stand strong against China, they'll say, put a for sale sign up in front of them as well. And if China's willing to pay, they're willing to pay. Now, the last thing to give some hope to this conversation, is my friend over here wants a little hope. We're going to give you some, okay? News statistics just came out in the last 2 weeks. China's GDP for last year is 2/3 of ours. 2/3. They are going like this. Why? Because they had that one-child policy for a long, long time, and their folks are aging, and they don't have a labor force to support it. Secondly, they spent a ton of money not only on the Belt and Roadway program, but inside their own place, building cities, thinking the population was going to expand, and no one's living there. They have entire cities in China, office buildings, apartment buildings that are vacant. No one is living there. They have a huge debt because of that, and they're now struggling with that. And third, they help to create a middle class in China. And when people start to develop middle class, they get middle class values, which means like they want to speak out. They want to pick their own leaders. And the communist dictator is like, no. We're just going to give you some money. Stay cool. We don't need you speaking about us. We're in charge here. So there are moments right now where if you have an aggressive American president who knows how to negotiate, we can leverage them right now because their economic advantage that they had for probably the last 15 years, in terms of how quickly they were growing, is now going this way. They need us now more than we need them. And President Xi didn't come to San Francisco a month or so ago because he wanted to see the Golden Gate Bridge, right? He came to San Francisco because American businessmen and women were there, and he wanted to encourage them to invest more in China. Well, we should stop them from doing that unless he's going to start to cooperate with us on the things that we just talked about. So that's the way I would go about it.